think I might have started it about a minute late. But, just so the audience knows, we're just going to give it another minute or so that everybody can log on, and then we'll start with the discussion. All right, it's 8:02. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. I'm Gary Grotto, the executive editor of the Arizona Capital Times, and I'll be moderating this morning's scoop and on the reskilling and recovery of Arizona's workforce. Our distinguished panel is here to discuss how community college districts in Arizona have participated in a statewide reskilling and recovery initiative, which was rolled out to address the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the workforce. The National Governors Association and the American Association of Community Colleges chose Arizona and 19 other states to participate in the national initiative, which continues today at Arizona community colleges through many workforce partnerships that are in place to ensure people, especially those who lost their jobs because of the pandemic, have an opportunity to retrain and reskill for sustainable wage jobs. Before we begin, I want to thank our sponsor, the Arizona Community Colleges Coordinating Council, or AC4, as they're also known. The council seeks to advocate, communicate, coordinate, and collaborate to strengthen communities across Arizona through education and workforce development. The council's vision is to shape the future by leveraging and advancing the strengths of Arizona's community colleges and works to raise the visibility and understanding of the impact of community colleges. Thank you so much, because without sponsors like AC4, we would not be having discussions like this today. Now, let me introduce our panel. First, we have Dr. Daniel P. Kaur, who began his tenure as the 9th president of Arizona Western College in Yuma in July 2016. He's focused his early efforts on facilitating student success, increasing access to higher education, creating a comprehensive strategic plan, and fostering a climate of innovation, collaboration, and stewardship at AWC. Prior to assuming the role of AWC's president, Dr. Kaur served as the Vice President of Academic and Student Affairs at Scottsdale Community College from 2007 to 2016. Dr. Kaur also held a variety of instructional and administrative positions at 3 different community colleges in Illinois, giving him over 24 years of experience at the community college level. Good morning, Dr. Kaur, and thank you for being here.
Happy to be here, Gary. Thank you.
And next we have Dr. Jackie Elliott, President of Central Arizona College in Coolidge. Like Dr. Kaur, Dr. Elliott began her tenure at CAC in 2016. Dr. Elliott began her career at Highland Community College in Kansas as as she put it, a glorified English tutor. She moved up the ranks into the student advising, teaching, and directing federal outreach program designed to find and provide services to people from disadvantaged backgrounds, and eventually landing a job as president of North Arkansas College. From there, she came to CAC. Part of Dr. Elliott's focus as president of CAC has been to design programs in partnership with the industries in the community. And she has said she sees the college as an economic driver in the county and community. Good morning, Dr. Elliott.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on.
Our next panelist is Lee Lambert. He's the chancellor and CEO of Pima Community College, one of the nation's largest community colleges in the nation. Lee has been in this position since July 2013. He comes to us from the state of Washington, where he was president of Shoreline Community College for almost 8 years and vice president for human resources and legal affairs at Centralia College for several years before that. Lee graduated from Seattle University School of Law with a Juris Doctor degree in 1992. At Pima Community College, he's determined to make make sure the school addresses improving educational achievement, partnering with business and industry, and leveraging technology. Thank you, Lee, for joining us.
Thank you, Gary. Great to be on the show this morning.
And our fourth panelist is Stephen Gonzalez, the interim chancellor for Maricopa County Community College District. Dr. Gonzalez has held this position since January 25, 2020, and he's also the 8th president of Gateway Community College, one of the district's 10 community colleges, position he's held since July 2013. I asked him this morning if he's doing both jobs, but there's the interim president at Gateway. So before that, Dr. Gonzalez was with Pinal County Community College District, which operates as Central Arizona College for 15 years, where he served in several roles, such as a math professor, vice president of academic affairs, and chief academic officer. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Gary. It's great to be here this morning.
And I'd like to remind our audience to please submit questions and through the comments, through the chat. I've found that the questions are always compelling, and it's nice to hear from the audience. So, I got to meet you folks yesterday, and I came in with a certain experience with community colleges, either covering bills at the legislature that they had going, or, as a student way back when you went to community college to get your core credits and maybe an associate's degree. And, there were a few other programs for some of the industries, but I found out yesterday just how innovative you are. And so Dr. Kaur, can you, give an overview first of AC4 and the Reskilling and Recovery Initiative?
Sure, absolutely. I'd be happy to. So AC4 is just that. It's the association of the 10 community college districts in Arizona. Arizona is a state without a overall governing board of community colleges. So this is our association of the 10 community college districts, frankly, because we find that we are stronger together, right? Our missions are so similar. Our approach to serving our communities so similar that we benefit from coming together, sharing best practices, sharing our own political strengths as we go to the Capitol in unison, as we will on the 23rd Community College Day at the Capitol, to make our case, to tell our story. And we, bring in our marketing folks from our various schools to share the great story of the community colleges in Arizona and what an important role they play in economic development. That was highlighted by this reskilling and recovery effort that you talked about. When the pandemic decimated the economy in Arizona, our communities did what they always do. They turned to their local community college, their college of the community, to help reskill and retrain and help the communities recover. And we did just that. Community colleges in Arizona moved with just such agility to adapt new programming. I know today we'll talk a little bit about a move towards industry recognized credentials as opposed to the traditional college, accumulation of credits to earn a degree. But it was in ways large and small, including deploying literally thousands and thousands of laptops into the hands of various students so that they can continue their studies from a distance, as many of us, perhaps all of us, shut our campuses at various points. So this was a nationwide effort. Arizona led the way, and it was our effort to make sure that we were serving our community for a post-pandemic economy. And it continues today. The agility of Arizona's community colleges is doing nothing but increasing. It really is a story that we need to tell, and I'm happy to start that conversation today. And I know my colleagues have plenty to add too.
So, the initiative was born out of the pandemic, but a lot of what we talked about yesterday and what we're going to talk about today are things that you all have been doing for a long time. So when did community colleges go from, the picture that I painted from when I went to, becoming more innovative and, partnering with, industries and businesses in your communities?
You know, that's been a steady evolution, Gary. And the important thing to notice, we still do all those things that you talked about, right? We still serve students who look to transfer. We still award associate degrees. We still do all the things that was your experience at a community college, and then just so much more. We really are the economic engine. When exactly that, there was no one date when that happened, but it certainly accelerated and in this century, you know, starting around 2000, community colleges across the nation, especially here in Arizona, really took on the role of being the workforce developer for their communities. And that's, as you've noted, continues today. And if anything is accelerating in terms of staying on top of technology, new forms of credentialing, all that is being driven by Arizona's community colleges. And I'd be remiss if I didn't note that community college enrollment in Arizona dwarfs the university enrollment in Arizona. So we are the primary delivery of higher education in the state of Arizona.
Yeah, I think Governor Ducey called it community colleges the secret sauce and the secret weapon for our transformed economy. So
I would agree. I would agree with the governor. Absolutely. We had an opportunity, the 10 of us, to meet with the governor, I think it was last month, and share the stories of our own community colleges and the innovation that is part of our organizations. And you're right, he summed it up as this booming economy in Arizona, the secret sauce, Arizona's community colleges.
Well, each of you has, you know, some significant partnerships with businesses and industries in your communities. I just want to go around the horn and get each of you to talk about the partnerships, or you know, some of the partnerships that you have. And I'd like to start with Lee Lambert. And you know, you mentioned yesterday Caterpillar, but you're also you know, partners with Boeing. How does that work?
Oh, so Gary, let me build off a point that Daniel was making based on the question, and then I'll get into this piece. So I became president back in 2005, an interim president. And I would say even at that time, we were already starting to evolve into something much more comprehensive and with a particular focus on workforce and economic development. So that means things were happening way before that time. So I always tell people we're at a strategic inflection point right now in higher education or education in general. And the key is, are we going to make that right turn that Andy Grove spoke about many, many decades ago? I think that's what you're going to hear today is we are making that right turn and moving into this digital era of the second curve. So with that said, partnerships are essential to being able to do that. And so we have forged and deepened our partnerships with the various organizations. So you mentioned Caterpillar, you mentioned Boeing, Raytheon, but I'm going to talk briefly about Train Company for a moment. So you probably have heard of the concept digital twin. So this digital twin concept is you have your physical world and then you have your virtual world, and they mirror each other. So we just entered into a partnership with Train Company, that's the HVAC company as everyone knows it, to create the first ever virtual living learning lab in the United States of America. So we're going to take our entire campus, our 5 campuses and our numerous locations throughout Pima County and in Santa Cruz County, and turn it into a virtual living learning lab and use and harness that data where students can then use that data to improve the efficiency, predict the failure of various equipment that power our facilities. And so you're going to see this next generation of community colleges really embracing the change. But partnerships are the key to making that happen. And I look forward to being able to talk about a number. But it starts with engagement. You have to be willing to engage your business partner, and you have to be willing to understand their needs, and then co-develop things together, not trying to say, okay, we know best, we'll go do it and we'll bring it to you and send us your people. It doesn't work like that anymore.
And you mentioned, you know, like with Caterpillar, you've got engineering graduates coming to you And I don't want to say the word lacking, but they need, I guess they need supplemental education, and you're the one that provides it.
Right. So that's correct. So what happens is it's not uncommon when you go through your traditional college university experience, getting a lot of theory-based instruction. Unfortunately, you're not getting the applied aspects that are necessary for when you get out of college to be able to actually do the work that's being assigned to you. So that happens in all fields of endeavor. And so in the case of engineers, when Caterpillar decided to relocate its surface mining headquarters to Tucson, Arizona, they sat down with us and said, okay, we're finding some real challenges with the folks that we hired coming out of the university. They're really good on the theory, but they really need to understand how machining works, how welding works, and can we build an academy together? So we built the Applied Technology Academy with Caterpillar, focused on the reskilling of their engineers. But Caterpillar also said, we want to open this up to any engineer who would also need those applied skills that are critical to their industry sectors.
So are you teaching the engineers to actually how to weld, or, how is that working? Because that's kind of the image I got when what you just said.
Right. So we take them through what that welder goes through, but in a shortened format. So you don't have to learn everything the welder needs to know, but you need to understand what the welder goes through and whether they can actually weld that design you've come up with. Can it be welded, right?
Okay.
Can those parts that are going to be needed for that design, can they be machined? And can they be placed in the position that you've said that whatever the product is that you're designing? So having them go through some of that experience is critical, so they understand what's possible and what's not possible.
Okay. So, Dr. Elliott, your Drive48 facility has, gotten a lot of attention, a lot of publicity. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because we're going to come back to it later, because it's a model for something else that we're going to talk about later.
Thank you. Yes, Gary, it has been an interesting model, and it's probably something that we haven't seen across the nation. So it's been exciting to be part of. But basically, Drive48 is a workforce training center that was built specifically to meet the immediate needs of an incoming employer, in this case, Lucid Motors. And in this situation, Lucid was looking to have, I think in year 1 or 2, about 2,500 people, individuals trained and ready to start production. So that did create a challenge on, number one, finding the individuals, and second, being able to train them quickly before a manufacturing plant was ever built. So we opened Drive48 in January of last year to meet the needs of Lucid Motors, and skilling the workforce that is needed in a very quick amount of time. And to date, I guess we're well over a year, we've trained over 2,500 individuals that are now employed at Lucid Motors. And obviously the cars have been coming off the line. And so when you think about reskilling, that we reskilled a lot of people in a very short amount of time. And in this situation with Drive48, it is a very structured program where Lucid actually hires the individuals. They come, once they're hired, they come to the Workforce Training Center. They are there for approximately 3 weeks, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and simulating the work that they will be doing when they enter into the plant, and and working with them. And we talk a lot about credit and non-credit. We talked about that this morning, and what Lee said, what Chancellor Lambert said about sitting down and really listening to the needs of the employer. The training that is provided in Drive48 is very specific to Lucid, but it's transferable to pretty much any advanced manufacturing. We talk about OSHA standards, we talk about safety, and and all of this while the individuals are there 8 hours a day for 3 weeks. The employers don't want to wait 15 weeks, which is a traditional semester for a credit class. So these courses are all ran as what we would call non-credit, basically that students aren't receiving college credit, but they're receiving highly skilled education and training specific to an industry, which in some cases may be more meaningful than a credit course.
Okay. And just real quick on that before I jump to Dr. Gonzalez, you said that, the challenge is finding the individuals, and it is Lucid that's hiring these people. Are they hiring them from your community, or are they moving down from Phoenix?
We developed a 3-pronged process, and we work with Arizona at Work. And Arizona at Work is the first point of contact, and they will meet with and screen individuals, and then they send them to Lucid, and then Lucid hires, and then we would be the third point of contact at the college. They are coming from all over, many from California, but a majority of the individuals that have been reskilled and trained have come from Arizona. Some from California, but a majority from Arizona. And many of them are just individuals that are, want to change their work. Some are our students even that are in a program at CAC, and they're like, what's going on over here? And they might leave our heavy equipment program and go through training with Lucid because they want to work for Lucid Motors. And obviously, it's an attractive company, right?
Right.
So sometimes we lose our own learners who are in other programs to the program. We also, a Lucid employee is also an adjunct instructor for us in advanced manufacturing. And this is a huge benefit because he's been phenomenal because he has opened our eyes as a college on improvements we need to make to some of our own programs and equipment, and has actually brought a new level of industry relevant today knowledge to CAC, and we're able to upgrade our advanced manufacturing lab. And I'm afraid, though, even though that he works for Lucid and teaches for us, he might be recruiting our students away to go work for Lucid. So we may have to have a conversation, but that's been a huge benefit for us to have Peter on campus and be able to say, hey, Jackie, this is how it's really done in a manufacturing plant, because I'm not in a manufacturing plant every day. And our faculty members aren't in a state-of-the-art manufacturing plant every day. They're in the classroom. So it's been a phenomenal partnership.
Are the people actually moving here and living in your community after they get the education?
Some, there are many that do drive from the Valley or from Tucson. Again, I think we see that, Central Arizona College, I'm sandwiched between Dr. Gonzalez and Chancellor Lambert, the two major players in the state, but Pinal County is obviously situated conveniently between Phoenix and Tucson. And if you want to be going any direction on I-10 at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's to Pinal County and not into the Valley.
All right, Dr. Gonzalez, one of your partnerships is with Intel, and I heard that there was a famous lady that came and toured it and everything the other day.
Right, Gary. So Maricopa has been a longtime partner with Intel, probably since they decided to move into the Valley many years ago. And you're right, we had the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, visit the Intel plant last Monday. And it was an opportunity to showcase one of our programs, specifically the Semiconductor Boot Camp Training Program, which is a 2-week program that students can enter and receive the training that they need to enter into the job place and be ready to work from day one. And so that's a program that's going to be kicking off here really soon. 3 of our colleges are involved in that program, specifically Mesa Community College, Estrella Mountain, and Chandler Gilbert Community Colleges. So we'll be launching those really soon. Another program that we've launched with Intel, and this was right about the start of the pandemic. We worked with Intel, and when I say we worked with them, our faculty sat down side by side with their engineers and technicians to develop the first in the country, a certificate and associate's degree in artificial intelligence. Now, there aren't many jobs out there where an associate's degree or certificate in artificial intelligence is the requirement, because it's so new in the way that we prepare students for this field of work, but it's becoming more and more a skill set that's required as a part of a job that someone might do, where artificial intelligence is a component of that. So it's our understanding that over the next 10 to 20 years, upwards of 60% of the jobs as we know them today are going to disappear to artificial intelligence. But that also says that there are going to be a number of jobs that don't exist today that will exist that are artificial intelligence related. In our lifetime, we've seen this happen with the advent of the internet. I can remember when I was in college in the early 90s where they talked about so many jobs were going to go away because of the internet. But we also know today that there are, thousands upon thousands of types of jobs that are available because of the internet. In fact, that's, the IT world is one that is constantly suffering from workforce shortages. And so that's a space that we've worked closely with Intel. We've done similar boot camps with Boeing, and specifically their cable harnessing wiring programs. We have massive programs with our partnerships with our healthcare industry in the Valley. As everybody knows, that there's a looming, if not existing, nursing shortage, especially with the pandemic. That's really tightened its grip on the shortage that's there. So we're doing our part to partner with those major companies, but we also do our part to partner with hundreds of small companies that you may not be aware of, know that exist. These are companies that do work and also feed off of the work that large companies like Intel and then this TSMC that's coming into the Valley. We're working with them, meeting our faculty and staff are meeting with their engineers and staff on almost a weekly basis at this point to ensure that we're developing a curriculum that will prepare a workforce that can enter into their plants and begin working from day one and be very successful. So you had mentioned earlier that the community college perhaps mission is changed over the years, and that we've become very aggressive at providing on-demand training. And what we're really seeing is that we're doing these short-term training programs. The short-term meaning anything less than what it would typically take to earn a certificate or associate's degree. Short-term, 2 weeks, 5 weeks, maybe 9 days, sometimes just a few days. And these are just to get you into the door so that you can begin to work. And then the idea is that you're going to continue to come back to us, and we're going to continue working with the Intels, with the Boeings, with the TSMCs to continue to create training for that person who might have started off in a 2-week boot camp, but then we'll need continued upskilling after that. So we're lifelong partners with the Intels and the Boeings. We're also lifelong partners with that person who was a student of ours, and we want to see them continue to be successful, continue to see them have opportunities so that they move from entry-level position into a sustainable career and job opportunity, whether it be with Intel or, as Jackie pointed out, they're learning a transferable skill set. If they're not happy, or if they're desiring something different from an Intel, they can move over to a Boeing and likely use that same skill set that we helped them develop.
So I'm just curious, when you mentioned the AI associate's degree, what kind of person what's the demographic of the student that's doing that? Are they coming from industry, or are they coming from the street or the community?
That's a great question, Gary, and you're a future academic administrator by asking that question for sure, because we asked the same thing. And our first cohort in that program had somewhere between 25 and 30 students. So we had an array of people who did not have any education, and we had people in that program that already had bachelor's and master's degrees, and I believe maybe even one already had a doctorate degree. Someone who was retired from a previous career who wanted to come in and just do something completely different. So we're seeing an array of people with various backgrounds and different genders and ethnicities, and so it's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of that.
Okay, now who's paying for these, or how does the cost break down, or when it comes to paying for these partnerships? Are they 50-50? And where's the community colleges getting the money to enter into these partnerships?
So I'll take that first one, Gary, and then I'm sure my colleagues would like to answer too. So the ideal situation for us, the one that makes it perhaps most easy to market and most enticing for the student, is one where we have somehow found the funding to cover the cost of training. It's a little easier to do on those short-term ones, and the longer you get out, of course, the more expensive it becomes for the student and for us to deliver. So sometimes the companies themselves will provide the scholarship. It might just be a couple $100 to go through a boot camp. Sometimes we partner with Arizona Commerce Authority, and they've identified grants that we can apply for. We'll use those grants to pay for our instructors, to purchase equipment that may be needed, and to also provide a partial or full scholarship for those students as well. So it just varies from partnership to partnership, but our goal is to always go into these and try to minimize as much as possible the cost to the student.
Okay. Anybody else want to?
I'd echo what Dr. Gonzalez said, is because much of what our employers are asking from us are those short-term training and not necessarily credentials. Like what I explained with Lucid's 3 weeks doesn't really fit in our 15-week model. It's kind of a hunt and search. I guess that's the best way to put it. Is, it's not always consistent, because one partner, obviously we have a great partnership with Cert Construction, and they're able to contribute significantly to help the program. And we always ask, can you provide an adjunct instructor? And that's for us, having them provide instructors obviously reduces the cost for us, because then we're not doing the instructors. But I would say, much like Stephen, it's inconsistent because it doesn't fit in the traditional funding model that we do already have established. So we have to be very innovative and creative, but it's the right thing to do. Like I said yesterday, you're never going to turn an employer away and say, I'm sorry, I don't have the funding to do this. I mean, it's important because we're all in the economic development business, and we all want Arizona to be strong and grow in Pinal County. So we just figure it out, whether it's looking for grants. And like Dr. Gonzalez said, we want to make sure that we keep the cost as low as possible for our learners.
Gary, basically the agility that we show in terms of program development, we show in terms of funding and financial resources. We just make it happen. We get it done.
Okay.
But Gary, can I just add? I think you're raising a very critical question. I think from a sustainability standpoint, long term, we really need to rethink the funding models, because the funding models were based on a 20th century industrial era time period. That's not going to work in this digital era, just in time, speed of industry, speed of business framework. So rethinking, for example, how we look at the expenditure limit law in the state of Arizona, free up the dollars that we do get to be able to use it not only for the for-credit side, but for the non-credit side, and be able to count that as the FTE towards the expenditure limit. That's the kind of things that we need to start thinking about. Lawmakers are essential because they're the ones who set that policy that gives us that flexibility so that we continue to be agile. And so I just don't want us to lose that point.
And real quickly, just so just to let the audience know, the expenditure limit is formula based, and it limits the community college's spending based on each district's 1980 expenditures. Is that correct? And it's adjusted for student growth and inflation. And
that is correct. That is correct. But it also uses a different inflation measure than the one that, so again, it just all depends on the mechanics, right? You get into the details of it. Mm-hmm. But again, giving as much flexibility really makes a difference in terms of how we can prioritize and allocate our internal resources.
So Gary, just maybe for some perspective, the 2,500 people that have been trained at Drive48 in the past year is about half of my student population, which is 5,000. And I don't get to count the 2,500 people that we have educated and trained and put to work towards my enrollment for the formula. And Lee could probably explain it better than I can. So basically, I am educating and training, but I don't get to count them.
So in other words, you don't get state money.
I get zero credit for the employees that we've trained for Lucid and put to work.
Okay.
So Gary, it's important to understand that what they've described there, there's a Senate bill going through right now, Senate Bill 1374, that addresses the expenditure limitation, but it doesn't address the fact that there is no funding for doing the type of training that we've all talked about here in the first 35, 40 minutes that we've been together. That only is applied whenever you're delivering those traditional 4 credit, where you're going to receive 1, 2, or 3 credit hours per course that you're taking. So it requires us to be extremely creative and innovative in being able to deliver these programs at very little to no cost to the students, and to partner with a company. I mean, this is always high tech industry. These aren't things that you can go to your local Home Depot, Walmart type store and buy things off shelves to train these students. These are highly technological pieces of equipment. And so that's why it's critically important for us when we enter these partnerships that there is some sort of a mutual benefit, because we're here to serve the community. There's no question about that. But at some point we reach a limit in capacity and what we're able to actually afford to do. So we're often hampered by that and less by our internal desire to serve a community.
So does 1374 not address the issue with, say, Dr. Elliott's school, where she can't count the
No, it doesn't, Gary. What 1374 addresses is what we're asking for is changing the definition of a full-time student equivalent. We also refer to that as a FTSE. Right now, it's for every 12 credit hours a student is take, there's money is allocated towards that. We're asking that be changed to 15 to match the federal definition. The fact of the matter is that in the community and college world, I don't know, I don't speak for my colleagues here, but in Maricopa, somewhere between 65 and 80% of our students are part-time attending students. So we have many students who are taking fewer courses at a time. And that's been one of the tremendous effects of this pandemic. It's really, we are seeing less students, and we're also seeing students that are taking fewer credit hours. Expenditure limitation, because we've seen an enrollment decline, and that because of that formula is based on that, it tells us the maximum amount that we can spend as a community college district. So what we're asking for is to increase our capacity by changing the definition of the credit hour. It's not the state giving us more money. It's allowing us to spend money that is already there.
Okay. Anybody else have any other thoughts on that, or no?
I would just add that what Stephen said is that in Drive48, we have 2 robots, Fanuc Robots. And if you're not familiar, they're incredibly highly technical pieces of equipment that are not, I think one's about 850,000, the other one's about $1 million. They're not inexpensive pieces of equipment that, so just to Dr. Gonzalez's point, this isn't just a single welding machine. These are highly technical pieces of equipment that our employers are expecting us to train for their workforce on.
And I would add, Gary,
Yeah.
it's what you're seeing as we shift into this digital era is the need to make sure we have the appropriate equipment and facilities and faculty and curriculum all lined up to allow us to do this. So as virtual reality becomes more of our reality, it costs money to acquire that virtual reality to create those immersive learning experiences. And so we have a critical question to ask as a state. Are we willing to make that right turn? Because the policy is at a strategic inflection point as well. And what you've heard Stephen and Jackie talk about is really just one piece of an overhaul that needs to be thought of. It's not the silver bullet. It's just one piece. We're not asking for more money. We're just asking flexibility to use the money we have. And I think that's an important point not to be lost.
Okay.
And Gary, as you've mentioned, this is a formula based from 1980, right? So that equipment that Jackie talked about was not even, thought of in 1980. Virtual reality and AI and the technology and the costs associated with delivering world-class training based on a 1980 model. That doesn't work, right? So there's a disconnect there, and that's what we're trying to get squared away at the legislature.
Okay. So as Lee said, it's just one piece of the puzzle. Is the workforce accelerators another piece? The governor has recommended investing $30 million in federal funding to establish 6 Arizona workforce accelerators at community colleges throughout the state. And as we were talking before, it's modeled after Drive48. How, if the legislature does in fact appropriate that, I mean, how are each of you going to spend that money? Or
I'm sure all 10 community college CEOs might have an idea, but I'll share what we have in the works down in Yuma at Arizona Western College. We serve Trax International as part of a very large defense industry and aerospace industry that's centered in Yuma. We have Yuma Proving Ground. We have the Air Force Base there, and they're looking at this moment to add 200 to 300 jobs, and they need some very specialized electronics manufacturing, and we hope to secure one of the workforce accelerators. We hope to support Trax International in Yuma and their growth and the wonderful secure jobs that they bring, and support our defense industry. So there's a tremendous need. We think we've got a good case to be made, and we're very hopeful that the legislature will act positively on the governor's request and these 6 centers. We also hope collectively as an Arizona Community College organization are just the beginning. I think there's a need for some multiple of the 6 that are available this year. And we certainly hope that there's more to come in the future, because I think the first 45 minutes here I've indicated Arizona's community colleges will put these to good use, and we will serve industry. We will attract additional industry, and we'll put folks into good jobs. And that's what we're all about.
Would anyone else like to chime in about the 30 million?
Sure, Gary. I think that I think Jackie and her team down at Central Arizona College and working with Lucid have really been the impetus for this type of support from the governor. And we hope, as Daniel said, that the legislators will approve this and we'll put this to good use. So if we look at that as the model, then what we're doing here in Maricopa is looking at other companies that are out here in Maricopa County and asking ourselves, if this model looked like the partnership with CAC and Lucid, which company might we partner with there? And once we begin to look at it through that lens, there are a few that rise to the top really quickly. It's probably some of the companies that I just mentioned, and it's probably us, having some sort of a co-location where it makes it really easy for employees to come in and out of these centers, for our faculty and staff to work really closely with engineers and technicians at these plants. So it's a matter of convenience and opportunity here. And there's supposed to be 6 of these, and we've got 10 college systems in our state. And so not everyone is going to get one. But as Daniel indicated, we're hoping that we continue to prove the worth and value of these, so that at some point, these are no-brainer opportunities that our state can support. Going back really quickly on our previous conversation, to further complicate that financing issue, I want to remind you and our listeners here today that Pima and Maricopa County community college districts do not receive any operational funding from our state. We were zeroed out from the state budget, what, Lee, about 5 or 6 years ago at this point?
So Gary, let me just put this in a larger context for a moment, because it started out with Maricopa, Canal Central, and us at Pima. We created an advanced technology corridor, which was really the antecedents to what you're now seeing, Drive48, and we're doing a fit lab and a number of other things. We have expanded that now to Arizona Advanced Technology Network. So we're no longer just the I-10 corridor. We are now a network of all 10 districts focused on things like advanced manufacturing. So I think this is a great start, a great investment to get things catalyzed. But I think in the long haul, we've got to go to 10 places, right? And we need to expand that so that everybody is powering up the opportunity and spread the love across the entire state of Arizona, allow for all of our communities to thrive. And you got to have business and industry at the core of that in order for all of our residents to thrive. So we're excited about this investment, and we're hoping future investments will come, because as you're already hearing, we're making good use of the investments that are already on the table. And we are arguably the most innovative community college system in the nation.
Because we're heavily represented at the Bellwether. But I would also add, there was a good question in the chat that I tried to address. And the question was, how is this really different? And I think what's different is not only innovation, but as community colleges, and I work with great leaders who actually are willing to sit down and listen to employers and industry and hear what they need and work together cooperatively to ensure that the competencies and the skills that are required by the employers, we are addressing them. In the past, I think higher ed kind of did the scatter shot. We think we know what's best, we'll offer this and hope our students are employable. This model, and I really think Drive48 is the prime example of business and industry and higher ed working hand in hand collectively to skill the workforce, and in an innovative, creative way, in a way that industry has demanded for many years, and we just finally woke up and listened. And I think that's how it's different now. Yes, is it more time consuming? Absolutely. Do I spend a lot of time working with my partners, Lucid Motors, Cert Construction, Wilson Electric? Absolutely. But they're intentionally designed partnerships for a highly skilled workforce that if you talk to Todd Kalamas, the president of Wilson Electric, his foreman will fight over those students when they finish their program, because they know they have exactly the skill sets that are desired. And so I think that's how it's a little bit different. And I'm sure Dr. Gonzalez and Chancellor Lambert could articulate that a little bit more articulately than me. But I think that's really important for the audience to understand that these are very intentional partnerships that are specifically designed. And while those skills are transferable, they're highly intentional in the design of the partnerships.
All right, there's a lot to cover here today, and I don't want to leave too much on the table. Dr. Kaur, can you talk really quickly about the partnerships with Google Cert and Amazon?
Absolutely, thrilled to, and really that's indicative of what we've been talking about. This really very agile, short-term, industry recognized credentials. So whether it's the Google Cert or the Amazon cloud, what these are very targeted IT certificates that frankly I saw a question come aboard. What are we doing with high schools? We're also offering to our high school partners where in a relatively short period of time, less than a semester, you can earn the certification that leads directly to employment. So it doesn't carry the traditional credit bearing instruction, but it is industry recognized credentials. And that is a huge movement in higher ed, and community colleges are leading the way. It's not an accumulation of credits leading to a credential, but what it is, it's showing competence in industry recognized benchmarks through whether it's Google certification or Amazon Web Services certification or other certifications. It's also moving beyond just IT into healthcare and agriculture, where basically we're saying this person we can verify has these industry recognized credentials or skills that will make them employable immediately. And Arizona Western College and my colleagues across the state have jumped into this in a really big way. We are awarding hundreds, if not thousands, of these credentials. We're offering hundreds at Arizona Western College and probably thousands statewide. And it's a real movement that's not going away. It's only going to accelerate in the coming years for sure.
So, oh, were you going to say something, Lee?
So Gary, I think building off of what Daniel was saying, our 10 colleges have come together to form what we call a workforce and economic development consortium. Because we have formed that, it allows us to take an innovation like Google and deploy it statewide almost immediately. And I think that's very important because a lot of, especially these multinational companies, they want to scale and they want to scale rapidly. Well, it's kind of hard to do that if you have to go college by college by college. They can come to AC4, work with our workforce development committee, and now you're at 10 places pretty quickly. And that's what happened with the Google IT professional certification as a prime example of that.
Okay. I want to take a few questions from our audience. We have Janine, who asks, with the high amount of baby boomers retiring, what efforts are being made to attract them to volunteer, mentor, teach? And I just lost it because it scrolled. It seems to have disappeared. So yeah, what efforts are there to reach out?
It disappeared because I answered it,
Oh,
Greg,
okay.
and I think, or Gary, once I answer it and then it goes in the answered.
Okay.
So if you go to the answered, because my answer probably wasn't that very good.
Yeah, let's see here. What efforts are being made to attract them to volunteer, mentor, teach? Are these efforts showing results? Is there a need for more of this retiring community to help?
Gary, the short answer is we're all making those efforts. Securing and retaining qualified adjunct faculty, especially in these evolving fields, is a challenge for us all. And whether it's retired military in Yuma, that's a big pocket for us. But I think they're paying off. Those efforts are paying off statewide, but I think there's a lot more to do. We're always on the lookout, all of our colleges, I believe, for qualified adjunct faculty who have those industry recognized skills and abilities who want to come into the classroom and teach for us. So if you're out there, contact your local community college. I think we'd all love to see you.
Okay. To what extent do you interface with your regional JTEDs?
Gary, I'll just get us started. At Arizona Western College, we have an amazing partnership with our local JTED. In fact, we offer most of the JTED offerings are actually taught by Arizona Western College. Somewhere between 80-90% of the JTED offerings actually are offered by the college and carry college credit with them. They helped equip our advanced manufacturing center, the Welton Advanced Manufacturing Center, put about $500,000 worth of equipment into that center. So we work very, very closely. And I can also tell you that we reduced our tuition for students still in high school under 18 to $25 a credit hour. because we wanted to create this very strong partnership as well as create a college going culture in Yuma and La Paz County. So they are a premier partner of ours and have been for many, many years.
So let's just talk real quickly about the future. So I'm sure you guys are watching the trends and focusing on the jobs of the future. How are community colleges committed to ensuring that Arizona's workforce is quote unquote future ready?
Well, Gary, I think I talked about the artificial intelligence program.
Right.
We talked about, trying to do our part in relieving the shortages in healthcare. Community colleges in the state of Arizona got the authority to offer the baccalaureate degree. That's the space that we're moving into, where we believe we can deliver high quality bachelor programs at low cost, and we're going to focus on areas where there's big demand. So we'll be looking at IT, healthcare, police and fire science, so we're preparing first responders, and then teacher education. That's another area where there's significant shortages, and the pandemic just continues to pummel education in that regard. So we have a lot of spinning plates right now, and when we say we serve the community, we really mean it. We serve the community, and the community is not shy about letting us know what those needs are, but it also requires us, and I think this is what the community expects of us, is to read tea leaves, to look out into the future, and to begin to see things before others might see them. And so while we're serving the immediate need, we're always thinking about what's the 5, 10, or 15-year outlook. Working right now with a company like Intel to develop an artificial intelligence certificate or degree where you are not likely to find a job that has that as a current requirement is preparation for that sort of future.
Okay. And I'll just end it with one last question from the audience. What can viewers do to help you get what you need? Write your congressman, write your legislator.
I think one thing that could help, tell our story about the individuals who, have life-changing experiences in community colleges, and they are well employed and didn't necessarily have to get a bachelor's degree to make $50,000-$60,000 a year and care for their families, and then write your legislators about expenditure limitations.
Any other thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Lee. No, you go ahead, Lee.
So I just want to add just a few quick pieces, right? So autonomous vehicles, a big presence in the state of Arizona. We developed with Too Simple the very first ever autonomous vehicle driver program. And that's an example of where the puck is going in terms of the future. I think to Jackie's point, the community invite us in to share what we're doing, bring us to the different community organizations so folks have a better understanding, and then let's make the case to change policy to align with where the puck is going. And I think those are kinds of the strategies, I think, from our broader network of individuals that will make a huge difference for us to stay competitive and innovative going forward.
Couldn't agree more with my colleagues. Arizona's community colleges have an amazing story to tell. Help us tell it. Help us tell it to local business, to your neighbors, to your legislators. Again, we've got a remarkable story to tell. Just help us tell it.
All right. Well, we've come up to 1 hour, and I just want to thank you all very much. I've learned so much about community colleges, and I've enjoyed, talking with each of you. And so I also want to thank our audience for joining us. And I also like to thank once again our sponsor, the Arizona Community Colleges Coordinating Council, and our panelists. Remember to keep an eye on your inboxes for promotions for our next morning scoop. I'm Gary Grotto with the Arizona Capital Times. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Appreciate it.